everyone. Today is July 14th, 2018, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger, and today we have a special edition of the Duel Assessment podcast. As you may notice, DeckTech, a man who eats, dreams, and breathes card games, is not here today, but the reason is he is on an assignment, and he is going to bring a special treat for you, in that we have an interview with the first and current Duel Links World Champion, Timmy Chiew. Timmy Chiew, coming hot from New Zealand, is going to interview with DeckTech, and they will come up shortly. But it's an honor having Timmy to speak to us today, and you won't want to miss a World Champion's perspectives on the game and suggestions on how to improve the game. All this insight from the highest level Duel Links player. We also have some other things to talk about this week, including the upcoming 2018 World Championships. There was a little leak about how the format would be, so I would be discussing that. And also the new cards from Gladiator, Beast, Duel Island. So it'll be cool to check out if those cards can bring Gladiator Beasts back. But first, let's talk about my week in Duel World. Honestly, for an episode where we have such a special guest, I have nothing to talk about in my week in Duel World. I'm still in Plat 1, and I probably didn't put in the games this week. Normally, I would play a few games a day after work or something, but things have been a bit busier in that I wasn't really getting any breaks and things like that, and coming back home tired, so I just, auto-dueled the various Cyrus and Gladiator Beast events. So, but I did try some decks in Aliens and Boojins. Aliens, I saw a Reddit post that got King of Games. I think I tried the same deck, but I don't think I even got to the promotion game. I may have gotten to the promotion game for Plat 2, but nowhere there. And Boojins, of course, they seem to be a deck that has a lot of potential, since they can do a lot of different things, but with For Hires being top dog, Dinah pretty much kills the deck, since Dinah has an ability when he's special summoned to remove stuff from the graveyard, and that's what Boojins, that's their toolbox is stuff in the graveyard. So it's a bad spot for Boojins right now. So that's why I have not gotten off Plat 1. I did check out For Hires. I probably will go to For Hires next because of some new deck developments, which I will talk about now. So, this week in esports, there is only one documented event this week, and that was Duel Links Meta Weekly 28. And what I mentioned before with For Hires, it seems like they have gravitated towards a new build, at least for the Duel Links meta community, so I might try that for the latter. And this Duel Links Meta Weekly 28 happened on July 11th, on Wednesday, so the top 4 decks were all For Hires, and they made up over 1/3 of the decks brought to the tournament out of 70 players. So it shows that, in this Duel Links Meta tournament community, For Hires are definitely there, and if you've played ranked at any capacity in Plat and above, they are probably the most common deck. So, it's kind of the next replacement for Sylvans. I personally find them to be more palatable than Sylvans. I hated Sylvans, but For Hires are more of a dumb deck. It's like they have a really high power level, and it doesn't take much for them to get there, but they weren't as brainless as Sylvans were, because there's a lot of board consideration on filling up too much space, sequencing, knowing what the opponent has, and things like that. So I personally struggle with For Hires. That's why I'm not at a high rank right now, but it's something I probably would have to pick up. But Amazonas and Masked Heroes are also common in this Duel Links meta, and also Batterymen, Gem Knights, Spellbooks, and 6 Samurais showed up in some capacity from 1 to 6 players. 6 players brought Batterymen, actually, so that's interesting. First place, Foo 420. This is a For Hire deck. Beatdown, all top 4 decks were beatdown For Hire, so not much variation here. But the new development here is that there are sphere Kuribohs. There are 2 sphere Kuribohs in this guy's main deck, and 1 in the sideboard, so you could have gone 3. And that could be a number of different reasons. I think it's because of Wiz. So Wiz cannot counter the sphere Kuriboh's defense effect, so it would counter Econ and things like that, but not sphere Kuriboh. Another new development in this for hire deck is there's only 1 Recon. There's 3 Donpa in this deck. Donpa is the one that destroys face-ups. Recon destroys sets. So there is only 1 Recon. And yeah, I think the main thing to take away is that Sphere Kuriboh is acceptable for hires. I personally have 2 copies, so I will try out this deck. And the 1 Recon is interesting as well. Second place, Mr. Cellophane. Same, another beatdown for hire. This one is the only one in the top 4 that does not have Sphere Kuriboh. It looks a bit like last week's for hires, but there is only 1 Recon as well with 3 Donpa. So that seems to be a new trend. This deck relies on Hey True Nades to win the game, I guess. Third place, Yami Mia. Yami Mia brought a beatdown for hires. Same structure, similar to Mr. Cellophane. There's Hey True Nades in the deck, 2 Treacherous Trap Holes up, 0 Mayhem for hires, and there are Sphere Kuribohs in the sideboard, so this person probably could have put in some in their tournament. And third place, Yehei. Not the 4th beatdown for hires, though this is kind of Yehei's specialty in that he uses the Regulation of Tribe as a protection card, and also to remove the fur hires that are extra. There's 3 Paleozoic Canadias, so that makes this one a little bit different. But similarly, there are 3 Donpas and 1 Recon, so think about trimming the Recons from your deck. This one has 3 Wizzes. That's something we saw with Shiny Sophion, I believe, a couple weeks ago. But, you could play around with how you build this deck. And it's a good thing that they're not really confined. I mean, with fur hires, you're going to put 3 beats, at least 2 of certain things. And it appears 3 Donpa and 1 Recon is the way to go. But there is some flexibility here. It's one way to separate yourself from the pack on the PvP ladder. Definitely Sphere Kuriboh is the way to go, but you can check out these decks and learn from the players. So that is it for esports, and now transition into our interview with Timmy Chiew. As I mentioned, Timmy is the current world champion of Duel Links, the first world champion from New Zealand, and he has history in the TCG as well, so I will patch in DeckTech and enjoy the interview.
Hey guys, DeckTech here. I'm coming in live at the time of recording with Timmy Chiew, the first and current Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links champion, world champ. He's coming hot from the mall, so we might get a little background noise, but we're going to do what we can. So, Timmy, it's an honor to have you here. How's it going?
It's going well. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, it's not every day we get to talk to the world champion of our favorite game, so that's pretty sweet. I've said it a couple times, but for those at home who don't kind of know your background, your history in Yu-Gi-Oh! And then in Duel Links, can you give like a little bit of an intro? Let us know who you are?
Yeah, sure. Well, my name's Timmy Chiew. I'm 26 years old. I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Since the very beginning, started at Kuriboh. And I was a competitive TCG player, and I started playing Duel Links since it came out.
Yeah. So how did, I guess from the regular TCG, it was just a natural transition to Duel Links. Do you try every Yu-Gi-Oh game that comes out, or was there something about Duel Links that kind of stood out to you as a good next step?
Well, recently, online card games or like collectible card games have become more popular, like Hearthstone and like Magic Online, and now Magic Arena. It's something that has been popular for a while now, and I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Online 3, which was like it's more similar to the TCG. Yeah, and I thought that Duel Links was something like that. But yeah, I just started playing Duel Links because it's accessible, and I can play it on my phone at work and after work and on public transport. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt the same way. It's nice when you can jam games while you're supposed to be doing something else, right?
Yeah.
So how did you go from just picking it up and maybe, playing while you're at work or whatever to becoming the world champion? How did that happen?
Well, I started Duel Links pretty casually, so yeah, I never intended. I wasn't aware that there would be a world championship, so I just played for fun. And because I really love the game, I just kept playing, and I got really into it when after the first KC Cup, because at that time I was free to play, and I thought it was the most fun thing ever. So I started investing money into the game, and yeah, and I started trying a lot harder when they said that there'll be a world championship.
Nice. So I don't remember. Did you qualify on that first KC Cup?
I qualified through the World Championship qualifiers.
Okay.
Yeah, the KC Cups, I was pretty casual then, just playing free-to-play stuff.
Gotcha. And then that gave you the bug, and then you got hardcore mode on them.
Yeah.
Nice. So what's it been like as the champ? Has anything changed? Have you gotten any, sponsorships or anything like that? I've got a sponsorship with
Yugioh Singles, yugiohsingles.com. They're a TCG company, and I know them from the TCG, and they know me from the TCG. And I got a sponsorship from them. But yeah, nothing really different. It's just the same. Except now my friends give me a lot of stick for being the champ.
Yeah, that's funny. I like that. A couple of the other players who were at that World Champs were also former TCG players, right? I know you mentioned that you were kind of close to Tut Pup. I know Decade used to play. Do you know any of the rest of the guys who were there?
I'm not sure about the Duel Links players. I'm not sure which ones of the Duel Links players were TCG players, because I didn't really know any of them before Worlds.
Gotcha.
But I knew a lot of the TCG computer players for Worlds.
Right. Okay. Well, that's cool. And so the TCG players, are they the ones who are giving you flack about being the Duel Links champ?
Yeah. They always say that Duel Links isn't a real world championship. I gotta win the real one.
Oh yeah, you got the digital one now. You need the real one. Okay. Well, why don't we shift gears a little bit? For our listeners who are, maybe not trying to be world champ, but definitely trying to get better at the game, what types of tips, or do you have anything for them to try to better their game on a day-to-day basis? Things that helped you get to such a high level?
Yeah. When I was training really hard for the TCG, I would grind a lot of games, and that would help me to get to know a deck a lot better. Mm-hmm. And after every single game, I would try to reflect and see what I could have done better. Regardless if it was a win or a lose, I would analyze my games. That's something I did before, but stuff like that. And I also like to play other games and and try to use, like, I'd play chess, and chess would help me to think in a different way to Yu-Gi-Oh, and then I'd also play a little bit of Magic and a little bit of Pokemon, and it would all make you think in a different way. So when you come to play Yu-Gi-Oh, you're not so you're more open-minded, and you think a lot. Yeah, you think a lot more outside the box.
Yeah, that's nice. What decks are you kind of playing now? What decks do you like in the current meta for people who maybe want to get a little better and they want to settle in on one deck to practice with mostly, or I don't know, anything? What do you think are the competitors?
I think at this stage right now, the best deck is Kuriboh. Mm-hmm. But that's the deck that I really hate to play. It's just, I just don't like the deck. But what deck am I currently playing? I'm playing a lot of Amazons and Heroes. I like Amazons and I like Heroes because you can sort of customize it a little bit more than the Kuriboh deck. So you can add your own text and you can build it in a way to beat other decks.
Yeah, that's nice. I like... I'm playing a lot of Amazonas right now, too. I like that one. And I used to be playing, before that, I was playing a lot of Sea Stealth, and you did a video about it that helped me out a little bit, so that was sweet.
Oh, great.
Yeah, thanks for that. So what do you think, well, actually, before we move on, is there anything in this newest set that you thought might shake things up? We've got, I don't know, some Gem Knights, we've got a little bit... I don't even remember the other ones.
I actually haven't went through the entire set yet because I just came back from visiting my family. So I haven't had a proper look. But yeah, from what I recall, I think Gym Knights were pretty good. And I want to play with the Lightsworn stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe some like Twilight sort of decks, light and dark decks.
Yeah, that was my jam back in the TCG days.
Yeah?
Yeah, a little bit. All right, well, cool. Once you take a look at it, maybe we'll see if you've changed your mind, if you like, I don't know, the batteries or something better.
Yeah.
All right, well, no, not that one. Gotcha. So one of your more recent videos on your YouTube channel that I saw was kind of talking about some issues that you saw with kind of the current state of the game, the health of the game going forward. Of course, our listeners should definitely go check it out, hear it directly from your mouth. But just to briefly summarize, I kind of got three main takeaways as your issues with the game. And one of them was the cheaters who have like mods and stuff to up their gains on PvE content, or to just gain a clear unfair advantage of like seeing face down cards and stuff in PvP. Another one was the cost to play and the speed of the releases. And then the last one was kind of more competitive end game options for high level players such as yourself. We've talked a little bit about a couple of these issues on our show, but I'd love to hear kind of you expand a little bit on that.
Okay. In the video I talked a little bit about these topics. So from a competitive background, and because I really love the game, I want the game to maintain its integrity. I don't want to see cheats or mods that give anyone an advantage, because ultimately it did affect some people in the World Championship qualifiers. So we don't know how many people got knocked out of the qualifiers because of mods, and we don't know how many people actually even use these mods. And it really ruins the game entirely, especially if you can't be certain who's legit and who's not.
Right.
I think Konami recently, or Duel Links has recently patched the mods, so you there are no PvP mods anymore.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so from what I know, I think the PvP mods got patched. And I hope that Konami keeps doing this and acts more strictly on people who do use these mods. Because, yeah, in the end, no matter what game, no one likes a cheater, right?
Right, yeah, I totally agree. It ruins it for everyone who's trying to play honestly. It makes you feel like what's the point of even playing if this guy's just going to cheat and win? And so I agree. I really hope that Konami kind of keeps it going, keeps on top of these. Of course, you've got to assume that as soon as Konami shuts down one popular set of mods, they're going to start trying to make a workaround for the next set, so Konami has to stay on it. But I hope they do, because I agree. I think that that's definitely worth their time.
Yeah. The next point is on the cost to play and how often that they release new sets. And yeah, I think pretty much every player can say the same thing. No one likes how expensive the game is, and no one likes how how quick the packs are released. And not only that, I really hate the power creep and how money is put into the game for cards and older sets are totally worthless.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like Hearthstone where you could disenchant your cards and create new cards. It's like absolutely worthless, and it's cards that you'll never use, or you'll probably never use again. Like, what's the point of having an ultra rare X-Raider, for example?
Mm-hmm. I have 4.
Yeah. And yeah, I think if they can slow down the sets and slow down on the power creep, then the meta can develop better, and this is actually better for competitive play as well. Because a lot of people, they don't have time to master a deck, and then a new deck has already been released. So the quality of play is actually not at the highest it can be. So if we got several formats or several tournaments with the same deck, then the quality of play at near the end of these formats will be a lot higher than during the one tournament we had the cards for.
Yeah, I agree. I skipped the for hire box, so that's woe is me. That always happens, where the good stuff is the ones I skip, and then the not so good stuff is the ones I get. But I dumped like 12,000 gems into this most recent box, and I didn't get everything I needed to do the Light Sworn. And then, I agree that I think the cost is a bit too high. It feels bad when you can save up for 2 months and then still not have enough to buy like a full set of this newest expansion. Right. And then it doesn't help that the gems expire. Like once you have 10K, you can't hold on to more for more than a month. So you have to buy something. So yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see if they can do something about that. Right now, changing course like a couple years in, that would be kind of a big deal for them. So we'll see where they go with that.
Yeah.
All right, and then the last one was the... Oh, sorry, did you have more on that?
I was going to talk about the competitive play.
Perfect, yeah.
I was actually playing a lot of Magic Arena recently, and they have these modes. They have a lot of different game modes, and some of these modes are like draft modes and like standard modes. And you, and dependent on how many games you win, you get a certain amount of prizes. And I wouldn't think of Magic or anything, but I was able to go infinite with these gems. So, something like this makes the game a lot more sustainable, especially for the better players. And people want to get better as well. So those people who don't go infinite, they're going to spend money to get better and play more and increase their card pool and whatever. And this is something that I suggested to the developers last year in Japan. And they assured me that there would be something for competitive players. And I really want to see a mode like that where, if you win, you get cards, you get packs, you get gems, whatever. Because this helps us be able to expand our collection without having to spend that money.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they do decide to keep releasing cards at the same rate it is, if there was another way to obtain the cards without spending money, this might stop the bleeding, I guess, or even, yeah. So at the moment, I really don't play much Duel Links because the competitive decks are so few, and if you know the matchups, that's you know everything. And once you get to King of Games, there's nothing more to do. So I find it pretty much pointless to play after you've reached King of Games, because you're just playing PvE for the rest of the month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no top of the ranked ladder like in Hearthstone. We know they rank everyone numerically, so the players can still compete just to see who's number one within that highest echelon. And then, of course, Hearthstone has a completely different system where that is also tied to their pro scene, which it has its benefits and you know its downsides. But at the very least, they have some ranking, which seems like a pretty simple fix, or not really fix, but a pretty simple feature to add to give you guys this extra competitive point to even continue playing after King of Games.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. We have to leave some time for Green Ranger to do the news and talk about how his day's going and all of that. So I think I'll let you go. It has truly been an honor chatting with you. We really appreciate you coming onto the show. Do you want to give any shout-outs? Plug your YouTube channel, the sponsor again, anything else that you want to talk about? Your Discord?
Yeah, sure. Shout out to Bricks and Potato. That's my Duel Links team. And my sponsor is yugioh. If you play with TCG, check them out. They've got the best prices on TCG cards. And yeah, check out my YouTube channel if you're a Duel Links player or a Yu-Gi-Oh fan. My YouTube's youtube.com/Timmy.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Timmy.
So much thanks to DeckTech and, of course, Timmy Chiew for providing the interview for us. As he mentioned, shout out to his Duel Links team, Bricks and Potatoes. You can follow Timmy Chiew on Twitter, Timmy_CHIEW. And he has a YouTube page, youtube.com/TimmyMon. That's Timmy, M-O-N. And, of course, his sponsor, yugioh It's not a dating website, but you can buy Yu-Gi-Oh cards there. So it might be based out of New Zealand, so I'm not sure about shipping rates and whatnot, but they do have conversion rates for prices to American dollars and other currencies. So check out yugioh if you want to buy some TCG cards. And this is we've played around with the interview format before. But if you did enjoy this type of content, these interviews with Timmy Chiew, we'll definitely try to get more in the future. Timmy was very gracious in giving us the time. I know he was traveling, so players do like talking about Duel Links. People who love Duel Links love talking about the game. So if you would like to see more of this stuff, let us know on Twitter, on email, anywhere you can find this. Let us know, and we will try to get more interviews for you. So, that transitions to the 2018 Duel Links World Championships. And basically, the structure of the upcoming Duel Links World Championships was found. I don't think it was officially released by Konami, but it's definitely something that we can talk about because it's very interesting. And we recently had the special duels earlier this month, which I got King of Games in. But we know why it's become evident why the structure of the special duels was the way it was with the legendary duelists, and that ties into this World Championships. So let's talk about it. It's going to be a 2-day event. First day is a round robin, and if you're not familiar with that term, it's basically you play everyone in your division, and the people with the highest records move on to day 2. So I don't know how many divisions there are, so let's say they divide 16 invited players by 2. So there would be 8 players in each division, and they would play each other 8 times. That's probably unlikely. It's probably going to be like 4 divisions, 4 groups. So, each player plays each other, and then the people with the highest records move on. So that makes sense. If there's 16 into 4 divisions, and then the top player in each division moves on to day 2. I guess that makes sense, because it divides evenly. But day 2 is a single elimination format, so that's pretty self-explanatory. And of course, the number of divisions and games depends on how many players get invited, first of all. The round robin, you definitely don't want to have people playing, 15 games a day, so it definitely makes sense to put people into smaller groups, but not too small. So it's an alternative to Swiss, I guess. And the format. So each player brings 5 decks. There are 3 standard decks and 2 legendary decks. There are a lot of stipulations here, so I'll try to explain it. Of those 5 decks, 3 are standard, 2 are legendary. So standard decks are just, the decks you play on the ranked or whatever. Legendary decks are the decks from the special duels. So the character you pick has to have a certain skill. So they probably won't have balance or restart, the common skills that are shared among people, but they do have their signature skills. So let's say Crowler has the Ancient Gear skill, so, things like that. And with these 5 decks, each has to be a different character, and each has to be a different skill. So, that's a lot of negotiating. Obviously, with the legendary decks, you don't want a really good skill on PvP. So you won't... Well, I guess they're constrained anyway, so you might... Crowler's skill is a good one, for example. Arcana's skill would work too. So anything that worked really well during that tournament, the special duels would qualify. And then you could use your main skills, your balances, your restarts, your beatdowns for the 3 standard decks. It's a best of 5 to win a match. So in the regular Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, it's 3 games and a match, so it's best of 3. Here, it's best of 5, so the first person to score 3 wins will win. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Each deck can only be used once in each match. This is pretty important. Usually, they let the losers keep their decks. So usually in Hearthstone tournaments, I think a winning deck typically cannot be used twice. So you have to sometimes dip into your weaker decks to try to get a win. And that makes it a little bit difficult. Here, it seems like a losing deck cannot even be used. So all 5 of your decks are going to be tested, and a weak point can be exploited pretty good. So definitely a deck building consideration to have 5 strong decks. Game order goes standard, legendary, standard, legendary, standard. So you bring your 3 standard decks, your 2 legendary decks, and they alternate. That's all it means. So that's pretty fair, because a legendary deck should not be able to face a standard deck. A standard deck should be much stronger than a legendary deck. And in this way, you could kind of match your ranked meta decks against each other, and then your special duel decks against each other. So that is that. And it might make sense. It doesn't appear that you have to lock in which deck goes in order, so it doesn't have to say, this is my first, this is my second, this is my third. You could kind of pick which of your 3 standards go first, and which of your 2 legendaries go second. So it might be wise to put your strongest decks first, so that you can knock out your opponent in 3 games, instead of dipping into your 4th and 5th deck, where you might provide intel to other people, or play a weaker deck that has fewer cards. Both players can see the remaining characters left for each player. So unlike other games where you could see the deck lists, you cannot see the deck lists from Duel Links, and that was the case last time too. But here, you just see the characters. So let's say you're watching this on Twitch. Each person is going to have 5 character faces on each side. So let's say you got Kaiba, you got Joey, you got Mai, you got Crowler, you got Esperoba or something. So, and then I guess they just get grayed out or something. So it's kind of like Pokemon. You have your Pokemon on the bench, and you don't know what skills they have, but they're there, so you can kind of get some intel about what they're playing. Obviously, like I said, Crowler is probably playing Ancient Gears, or he could be disguising himself as Beatdown. So that's some information for the players about knowing what decks to expect for the tournament. Legendary decks are the same as last month's special duels, as I mentioned, but it's possible they changed the list of skills and cards, because Konami likes to do this in that they disguise an event to have some purpose, and it's apparent that the special duels were to collect data for the championships. It has to be, right? Because stipulations were so specific. Each character was limited to 2 or 3 skills. You had required cards, you had optional cards, but you needed certain cards. So, obviously, they probably knew, Arcana or Crowler were the strongest guys. I don't know. It could have been something else, but those are the most common ones I saw. And they might give Crowler weaker cards in his pool. They might tweak it a little. And it's also important to note that you could play skillless. So, like we mentioned before, special duels, some people just brought for hires with no skill. No dual skill, I mean. Not no skill, but you could choose to play your legendary deck as a meta deck that has no skill, but then you have to weigh if this neutered deck with the character's required cards and no skill is better than the other 3 meta decks in my standard list. So there's a bit of balancing there. This is the most important thing, I think. This next stipulation is going to make the decks very not meta, very unexpected. Card limits are spread across your 5 decks. So if you have a limited card, you can only use 1 across all 5 decks combined. If you have a semi-limited card, you can only use 2. And all of the unlimited cards, which you have 3 copies of in your deck, can only be used across all 5 decks. This is huge. You can only use 2 econs in all 5 decks combined. So, obviously, you kind of... This puts a huge restraint on cards like Treacherous Trap Hole, Econ, Mirror Wall, Super Rush, Wall of D, any really common good back row. Monster cards are less affected. There are cards that you do use in multiple decks, but typically if you're running an archetype, there aren't the monster slots where you could say, I'm going to fit this guy in every single deck. There are cards that do that, but this spreads things out. So, let's say you're going to bring 5 decks. You're bringing for hires. That would be Kaiba. That would be Beatdown. And will you put a treacherous... Let's say you don't have 3 treacherous trap holes. You could only put 1 in that deck. And then you'll have a second treacherous trap hole for your Masked Heroes deck. So, this does put... The champions likely do have 3 of each card. People like me don't, but... it's possible a person going into this tournament does not have 3 of a card, and this is where having 3 treacherous trap holes is a really good thing. So let's say you're bringing for hires, you're bringing Masked Heroes. Masked Heroes do use Beatdown, but let's say you are trying to hedge, and you're putting Aster into a legendary deck slot with the skill that gives them 1,000 attack on the field. So... that deck would probably require Treacherous Trap Hole. You probably can't put Econ in that deck, or you might put 1. Or you might even have Cosmic Cyclone, if you have some of those. Let's say you're building another deck. Arcana has to fill up a slot. Crowler has to fill up a slot. So there's a lot of considerations about what you use, and certain cards like Spellbooks or Boojins, like a 30-card deck, might be useful in this format because they don't really rely on those spells, like Econ and things like that. So it's good to pigeonhole certain good cards for specific decks, and other cards that are a bit lower on the pecking order, like Fire Formation Gyaku, might see some play. Your floodgates are going to be spread out, so you're going to try to get more Paleozoic Canadians. Forbidden Chalice, Memory Loss might see some play, because you can't have, a million chalices in all your decks, so you're going to have to spread them out. All these cards have special secondary abilities. Something like Security Orb might come back. These cards that aren't good enough to see play are going to be pushed into see play. And certain decks with their own toolkit help as well. One deck, for example, let's say for hires, they have Mayhem for hire, and also that trap card, for hire training for all your training needs. So cards with their own tool set. Another group. This isn't a meta deck, but let's say the Maldoshés, they got plenty of trap cards and spell cards specific to them, so they might be a deck to consider. Let's say you're really good at the deck, and they won't take up your extra Econ or your extra Treacherous Trapple slots. So there is... all the players going into the World Championships are going to have a long time to build these decks. They're going to need to think and see what is what. It's not only spreading out your limited resources across your 5 decks, it's knowing what the opponent's going to play and trying to anticipate that and counter it. So this is definitely going to be really fun to see what people are going to bring because of all these constraints. And finally, the last stipulation is cards released after August 1st are not allowed. So I believe that's a new Chaz event, that's when that's going on, but all these cards are currently legal. Taya is coming on deck, so she's going to be legal too, so this makes sense too. Obviously, you can't, surprise someone with a card, so that's all we have for the 2018 Duel Links World Championships. This definitely makes things a lot more exciting, because if you're just going to see meta decks all day, it might be quite boring, but, this forces non-meta decks, non-meta cards into the tournament, so I am definitely going to check this out. Hopefully it will be streamed on Twitch or something, so I could, this will make for a great viewing experience for sure. This week's main PvE/PvP event, which came out yesterday, was Duel Island Gladiator Beast. Duel Island was pretty well received the first time around, from what I could tell. People liked it. Konami took in a lot of suggestions on how to, make the PvE experience better, and this was the result. And this time, we see Gladiator Beasts. Gladiator Beasts were a meta deck. They were probably... I don't think they were over tier 1. They needed to hit into things, and that was their weakness. But they were a solid top tier 2 deck, I'd say. And they showed up in tournaments. They showed up on the ladder. People got king of games with them. And there are some new Gladiator Beast cards coming. And yeah, we already have these cards. So if you've played the event, you probably scored some of these. Last time Gladiator Beasts were around, Bestiari saw some play. Bestiari was the bird that 1500 when they tagged out. So just to explain Gladiator Beasts, if you're a new player, Gladiator Beasts have they're kind of like wrestlers, so they tag out and tag in. If you're thinking about a wrestling WWE tag team match, the person who tags out will tag in their partner, and what happens is after a Gladiator Beast goes into battle with a monster, so they hit or they get hit, they go back into the deck, and they bring in a new monster which has an ability. So basically they have this tag-in ability. Bestiari was a winged beast that had 1500 and it destroyed a spell or trap when it got brought back in. Dimakari saw a little play. It wasn't the best one. People usually put 1 in, but it could attack twice during the battle phase. Laquari was the main SR chase for Glad Beast, and it was basically a 2100 when it came on the board, as well as just being an 1800. Another card you saw was Murmillo. Murmillo was weak. only had 800 attack, but it destroyed a monster on the field when tagged in, so that was a pretty good ability. And I think people saw some of the fusion cards. Azadari was a gorilla that had 2500, that was all it did. It had no special ability, but it was a contact fusion. So Gladiator Beasts do contact fusions where they fuse each other without polymerization. And, of course, I believe Necrolos or Hyrcanos. I think Nerekius was the other fusion. It was a contact fusion of 3 Gladiator Beast monsters. And it was kind of like the finisher, but you didn't really need it. So let's see the new cards here. The first one is Gladiator Beast Darius. Darius is a UR. 1700 attack, 300 defense, Beast Warrior, Earth attribute. When this card is special summoned by the effect of a Gladiator Beast monster, target one Gladiator Beast in your graveyard and special summon it. But its effect is negated by this card and it is shuffled to the deck when this card leaves the field. At the end of the battle phase, if this card attacked or was attacked, you can shuffle it into the deck, special summon one other Gladiator Beast, except Darius. So, Darius basically just comes onto the board and brings another guy back from the graveyard. It's a pretty good ability. It would be broken if the other guy had also their ability, so you would double up on tag-in abilities, but it's still pretty good. And the easy thing to do, I think the main combo with Darius is you bring him onto the board, you get another card out, and then you contact fuse into Azadari. So Azadari's the gorilla with 2500 attack, and basically that's all it is. You get a Azadari out. So it's not the best ability, and another card it works with is Gladiator Beast Andal, which is just a 1900. It's a normal monster, so it's not the worst card, but it's okay. It gets you an Azadari on the board, which is something to consider. Another card is Tigerius. Gladiator Beast Tigerius is 1800-800 Earth Beast. This card cannot be used as a fusion material monster. When this card is special summoned by the effect of a Gladiator Beast, you can discard one Gladiator Beast to add one Gladiator Beast from your deck. So, you basically discard one from your hand, and then you add one from your deck to your hand. So it's just swapping a monster. This card does not have a great ability. The one we just saw, Darius, brought a monster back from the graveyard for free. This one, I don't think Gladiator Beasts have a full hand typically. They have things like Draining Shield, which would be set. And they're not really adding to their hand, they're bringing them back to the board. So it's conditional. This ability is conditional if you even have a card in your hand. And then it can't be used as a contact fusion, which sucks because you do want the Azadari on the board, and it doesn't really do anything to affect the board. The only good thing about this card is it has 1800 attack, which Laquari is an 1800 that becomes into a 2100, so it's not bad. I think this is worse than Darius, but it could be a budget Laquari. That's how I see it. The effect is not the best either, because you want to tag them out. You don't want to. It doesn't matter which one you bring into your hand. You just want the one special summoned from the deck, not summoned. So there's no ability when you summon a Gladiator Beast. Another new card is Equesti, Gladiator Beast Equesti. 1600, 1200 Winged Beast, Wind. When it gets tagged in, when it gets special summoned by another Gladiator Beast, target one Gladiator Beast in your graveyard and add it to your hand. At the end of the turn, at the end of the battle phase, when it was attacked, you can put it back in your deck. So this ability is somewhere in the middle between Darius and Tigerius. It's better. It's worse than Darius, better than Tigerius, because you get a card for free. Any Gladiator Beast in your graveyard, you target it and you add it to your hand. So it's a fringe one, I'd say. It doesn't affect the board. unfortunately, Bestiari and Murmillo do affect the board, but you can play around with Questy. 2 more new cards. This is Gladiator Beast Retiari. 1200, 800, 3-star Aqua Water attribute. When this card is special summoned by the effect of a Glad Beast, you can remove from play 1 card from your opponent's graveyard. If it was attacked, you can return it to the deck and special summon another Glad Beast. So this ability, the tag-in ability, is basically remove 1 card from your opponent's graveyard out of play. Banish that card. And banish from graveyard is not the worst thing in the world. If you played against For Hires, the Dyna does that. But it's not an ability you want as your only ability. It's good if it's extra. That's how I feel about it. Certainly, in the Sylvan meta, in the Mastero meta, they were pretty good abilities. They if you banish the Sylvan, that was pretty solid, because then you would not Sylvans. If you banish the Destiny Hero, that would prevent them from drawing 2 cards and stuff like that. But it's weak. This card, Retiari, has 1200 attack. It doesn't affect the board like Murmillo does. It does not destroy anything. It doesn't affect the board like Bestiari does. It's just an extra ability. So, I think this one does not see play, unfortunately. And the last card is Gladiator Taming. This is the only spell you get from this new set. It's a quick play spell. You get 2 options. If you have a face-up Gladiator Beast on the field, activate 1 effect. Select 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and change its battle position. Second ability. Select 1 face-up Gladiator Beast your opponent controls. Take control of it until the end phase. So if you look at this card, you think it looks like Econ, but the first ability is Econ. You switch them into defense mode or attack mode, but the second ability is only useful if Gladiator Beasts become a meta deck. You take control of a Gladiator Beast. Unlike Econ, you don't have to tribute your own guy, but at the same time, this is extremely techy if Gladiator Beasts become the new For Hires. If you're putting this in your deck and you're the only person playing Gladiator Beast, it's kind of useless. So it just does flipping 1 guy into defense mode. So definitely it won't see play unless these cards actually make Gladiator Beast worthwhile. So overall, I don't think these cards do enough to make Gladiator Beasts worthwhile again. I could be wrong. I do like some of the cards. Darius, I like. Tigerius is a damper. Retiari is no good. Equesti is okay. Gladiator Beast Taming isn't that good, so it's fine. Gladiator Beasts had their time, I guess. If you do like playing the deck and want to make them see a comeback, it'll be a good thing to try these cards out. But I don't think this makes them come back. But it's 5 new cards to test out, and it's fun just to test out things. So see if you can make it work. It'll be fun to do. And finally, the last thing I will talk about today is Train Your Kuriboh. This was the thing that was teased about Kuriboh, kind of like a pet, but it's just a login event, and all you have to do is just auto-duel or play 1 ranked game, and you get experience points and you level up your Kuriboh 5 times. I personally thought it would be a competitor for Pokemon Go, but it seems like that's not the case. It's just kind of a login event, and you get a prismatic URSR ticket at the end of in early August. So that's all there is to it. Now, I don't know if you get to keep the Kuriboh as some kind of duelist. We shall see, but it is a free gift, so I will not complain about it. So it's, I guess it seemed like a bigger deal than it was, but it's not. So that is it for today's episode of the Duel Assessment. Thank you for listening. Shout out to Timmy for the interview again. It was definitely an honor for us to have a person of his caliber on the podcast. And if you enjoyed listening to Timmy definitely let us know so we shall bring more of that stuff for you in the future. Listen and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Overcast, YouTube. We're probably available in other searchers as well, so check it out. Just search the Duel Assessment. Check out the podcast and more at our website, theduelassessment.wordpress.com. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/theduelassessment. If you want to help our efforts, patreon.com/duel_assessment. Send us an email with any questions at theduelassessment@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Twitter, duel_assessment, me at Green Ranger CCG, I forgot my new name, and DeckTech, who did the interview with Timmy HS DeckTech. Thanks a lot, and see you guys later.